Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Comics Pals Reviews. Today is a very special day, and I'm so thankful to have Pete alongside me to celebrate this day.
Sean, I'm so excited to talk about this issue with you.
Today is Inferno Day.
And what a blessed day it is.
X-Men Inferno has finally dropped. I actually could not resist grabbing two covers for this one. I had to get I had to get the main cover.
Of course.
I love it. You know, it's got Moira on it and it showcases, you know, various characters from Krakoa on the ground fallen under her. And it looks really cool. But then I had to do it. I had to get the Art Germ Mystique cover.
That cover's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, my God.
So cool.
Yeah, gorgeous. Mystique is amazing. We have a lot of thoughts, as you can imagine, about this issue. Before we get to that, I do want to let you guys know how you can support the show. Make sure that you are leaving us a like, a rating, and a review wherever you listen, if that happens to be YouTube. Subscribe for free, like the video, share it with your friends, drop us a comment. All that stuff is free to do, and it helps us out a lot more than it costs you. If you leave comments on our videos and you're wondering where our responses are, they're always on our main show, The Comics Pals, which drops every single Monday, where we're talking about the characters you love and all the places you can find them and the news that surrounds them each and every single week. And if you're looking for our reviews for Image Comics, those always drop on Wednesdays. We get our Image reviews out early. Our reviews for everything else will always drop on Thursdays. And also listen to our reviews for What If. We watch What If, which drops every Thursday as well. Now, let's get into the main event. We're only reviewing one book this week. It's our pick of the week. Buy it, whatever. Let's get all that out of the way.
Pull this fucking book. Are you kidding me? This is the shit. This is the main event.
Yes. This is the direct, pretty much, follow-up to House and Powers that Hickman worked and did such a masterful job with. You know, every thread that was laid there is addressed here in some form or fashion. It's a triple sized issue. It's a doozy, very long, but there's a lot here. So it's Jonathan Hickman, of course, who wrote it. Valerio Schiti did the art on this issue, and then I can't find the other credits. I don't know. They always move these around. It's so annoying. I've got them.
Okay.
David Curiel did the colors. Joe Sabino on letters, and Tom Muller, of course, did the designs. Now, the issue starts off with basically the X-Men, a few X-Men on a mission. We've got we've got Pete and Bessie, frankly, Kid Omega. Domino and Wolverine on a mission to kill Nimrod.
Well, wait, what about you want to talk about the bit before that?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, so the first like 3 pages of this, there's like a bit of the infographic stuff, but we have 2 pages of seemingly Charles and Magneto being resurrected, and with Emma standing over them with Cerebro on. And I feel like that is the only thing that happens in this issue for which we are provided zero context.
Yeah, I think though that it's fairly, it's not a great omen for those two. I took it as they're not surviving this series.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily think of it that way at the time, but I think thinking about that scene now in the context of what we've read, yeah.
Yeah. Nothing else happens there. It's interesting that Emma's the one wearing Cerebro and not, say, Jean. But I think that part of the teasing, the previews have given us the idea that Emma's out for power right now. And there isn't much more powerful you can get than being in the Charles Xavier position on Krakoa.
Yeah, For sure.
But we do see the Orcus mission where they're trying to kill Nimrod, and it just doesn't go well. It doesn't go well. They die. They die horribly. Nimrod has an answer for all their powers. He's programmed to be aware of how their powers work and knowing the counter. And that's really bad because you got to assume he knows that for all the mutants.
So I wondered that because one of the things that I was asking myself is, does he have some idea of how to do that for all mutants, or is this specifically because of the conversation that the two scientists have, where they're talking about how this is like the 17th attack or whatever, right? And that like they've learned and gotten better at responding every single time. I'm wondering if he's specifically able to counter these three mutants better because he's fought them so many times before now, and he's like optimizing his strategy every time.
That's possible, and it's possible that they're choosing not to send other mutants to face him because they know that that will happen. They don't want to give him knowledge over their power sets that they don't need to. But it is curious, like, are they sending are they continuing to attack him because they really think that they'll win? It's they do have a conversation later where they Professor Xavier and Magneto tell Moira, like, we're not succeeding in trying to kill him, but why do they keep sending them? Like, it's pretty clear that these three mutants are not going to kill Nimrod.
Yeah, you think they would have decided that before the 16th attempt.
Yeah. It's also frustrating to me
Although, I guess, just real quick, sorry, they did say that not every attempt has been those mutants. Right, they said there's been 16 attempts overall, and they called out that like some of them were like hired external forces and participants, including long range assaults, two instances of hired assassins, and then they had the Brood attack them once as well. So I would imagine that those are a certain number of those 16. So I guess it remains to be seen like how many times the mutants have actually done it, but like we see in that shot, they have like at least 6 I can count Wolverine skeletons in those like stasis pods.
Yeah, I guess the point I was making is that they said they're sending the same mutants.
Yes.
That's the point.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to get at is I don't understand why they're sending only 3 mutants when they could send all the mutants.
Yeah.
If Nimrod is that big of a threat, and you know that, they take Nimrod as being the ultimate threat to mutant kind. In the conversation they have with Moira, they identify that Nimrod and Destiny are the 2 greatest threats to mutant kind. So why would you play around with one of your greatest threats?
Yeah, it's a good question.
It's something that I hope the series has an answer to, but it's more likely that if the answer is simply if they did that, they'd win, and that can't be the story,
right? But you would hope that Hickman has a better answer for it than that.
I don't suspect that he does.
Yeah.
But then we get a scene that adds a little bit more dialogue and context to the initial meeting between Destiny, Mystique, and Moira. It actually opens with a new scene that we haven't quite been shown before, where Moira is with the scientists who have helped her develop this mutant cure, as they refer to it. And I don't know if you felt this way, but I actually thought that this scene, at least the very beginning of it, was like popping the champagne for the crew behind the scenes that works on these X books. I was like, we did it, guys. We got here.
It's funny. I could definitely see that. I like that, especially like congratulations everyone, we've done it, right, as the first panel there. The first thing it immediately made me think of was that that scene in Spider-Man 2 with Alfred Molina, and he just murders all the doctors.
Yeah, that's funny. And then of course, the fact that there are 5 of them, that's obviously a big number for the mutants.
Sure.
I want to go back at some point and compare the original sequence between these three
Yeah.
and the one we're getting here. I don't know if the dialogue is the same. There were certain lines that I do remember, but I think there was definitely new lines.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. There were definitely some that I remembered, and I was wondering, like, oh, did they just lift these pages and put them back in? Like, is it like a real recreation of these things, like we've seen done in smaller degrees in some of the other books? But
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think there is new stuff.
It's interesting though, because I think this scene is maybe more important than I even realized when I first read it way back when, or my first reading of this issue. So the point is made by Destiny and Mystique that Moira has doubt about whether or not it's the right decision to try and save mutant kind. She's not sure that that's the right thing to do. And they think that making her fear them is that might be the right course of action. I think it's really interesting that maybe she carries that doubt with her now.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because to the point you just made, I don't know that I thought about that the first time you said it, but now that I think about that in the context of the cover, it makes me wonder.
Yeah.
Yep. Right? Like, maybe maybe she's going to come to the conclusion that the one thing she hasn't tried is a different way to get rid of the mutants.
That Moira should try a different way to get rid of the mutants. That's the most compelling question in my mind about the Moira character now is based on this scene. Is she motivated by a genuine desire to keep mutants thriving or her own self-preservation? She seems scared of the idea that she could die before she gets to live another life, asking the question of how do I die? Mm-hmm. And then also being told that she only has about 10 or 11 lives, depending on how many what her choices are, no matter what. So that I think is really interesting. Does Moira care about the plight of mutant kind or her own existence and avoiding destiny?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's possible that the answer is both to some degree, right? Like just because she does care about the plight of mutant kind doesn't mean that she also doesn't want destiny. Like, there's the page, right, where Xavier and Magneto agree to get rid of her. And Moira says, I will not accept her breathing Krakoan air. I want her gone forever, burned from all existence. And forever, burned, and existence are all in bold and italicized. So right. It's personal for her, right? Like she says, I haven't slept peacefully for 1,000 years. Like I think that Destiny is like a boogeyman for Moira. Yes. And I think that she does selfishly want her gone because of the threat that she represents. I don't know that means that she has sinister or ulterior motives that go against the mutant agenda, right? That said, I think it could mean that, right? Like, because to the point that Destiny makes, the cycle is inevitable, but if she can get rid of Destiny and take her off the board, then she's free to do whatever she wants for the rest of this lifetime, right? And like, I don't know, like she could decide that, she wants to steer the ship in a different direction. Like I really do think either of those things are possible, and with what we know right now, like I don't really feel like I have enough information to believe that she does have an ulterior motive, but like there's enough smoke there for me to want to check out that fire,
I'm not saying she even has an ulterior motive. Moira is not powerful.
Yeah.
right? Moira's only like power that's relevant is the fact that if she dies, she'll live again
Mm-hmm.
and she retains her memories. So she's not a schemer. She's never been presented as a schemer in the way that Magneto and Xavier are schemers.
Mm-hmm.
Her biggest scheme is that she's aware that Destiny's knowledge of her will end this. But why does Destiny want her? Why is Destiny's presence on Krakoa an end game? Why is that the worst thing that could happen?
Right.
If Moira's goals are altruistically in favor of mutant kind, then what is the threat of Destiny knowing about her?
I guess the threat is that how does Destiny use that information? Right? Because like it's I don't know that it would be a threat to Moira in any tangible way necessarily, because nobody knows who she is. Well, you know, obviously a bunch of the X-Men know who Moira is, but right, like not all mutants are aware of who she is or what her abilities are or whatever.
They think she's dead though.
Right. So it's like, I'm just saying, like, if she was like, oh, Moira's alive and here you go, right? Like, and I'm telling every mutant that this is the deal, then that obviously presents a threat, because if anybody kills her, then, you know, the cat's out of the bag, right? But, like, to your point, why would Destiny want that?
According to our knowledge, Moira has done what Destiny asked.
Right.
So that's the major question at play. I think that Moira, we've never been shown that Moira learned a love for mutant kind. We've only been shown that out of fear of dying, she has chosen to follow the path of helping mutants.
Right.
So I wonder how much disdain she has for mutants, for her personal destiny being intrinsically linked to the success or failure of mutants as a species. I think that's a major question.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when you think about it, right? Like, something I was thinking about this time around that I hadn't thought about in a while was like, you know, it's not only that she's lived all these lives, right? Like, she like had a regular life, right? And like was seemingly ready for, you know, whatever, right? Like for the for the next chapter of existence in the Marvel universe, as it were. And has been like forced into this never-ending cycle, right?
Sure.
And you got to imagine that like that takes a toll.
Yeah. Hickman used this issue to circle back to some things that he hasn't really been able to touch upon. For example, the old ladies. We got
the gorillas.
And the gorillas. So 2 birds, 1 stone, if you will, which I really appreciated. Actually, on the main show, I think this past week, I talked about how it was frustrating that these elements, like the old ladies, were dead and wouldn't be addressed, but actually they were addressed the very same week for you guys. So that's pretty funny. I like that. Happy to see that. And we see that the mutants are still, you know, they're at war. They're trying to, you know, this is a war between Orcus and the mutants. This is absolutely a war between them. So I really like that stuff. The conversation between Magneto, Xavier, and Moira was so good.
I was on the edge of my seat that whole beat, just because it's like, this is the stuff we've been waiting for. You know, this is like the promise of House and Powers, is this level of storytelling, you know?
Yeah.
And these stakes, like it just feels so dramatic, you know?
Yeah, it really does. And Hickman handles the tension very well. His style of dialogue suits these situations. He understands how to bring gravity to a situation through not only dialogue, but plot. And that's what makes reading his stories so awesome. There's so many quotables here. I appreciate the conversation that they have about honesty. You know, Moira says, Well, if we're being honest, and we should be honest with one another, which was an imitation of uh, Professor X's line, I'm not sure the two of you want to hear what I have to say. Magneto says, I do not fear truth. And Moira says, yet here I am, the biggest secret in mutant history, still hidden away. What is it that she wants?
I don't know, because she was the one who wanted to be hidden away.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, Charles responds to that and says, one would need to be a telepath to sense that you are radiating anger and regret. And, yeah, what is the regret? That she relinquished power? That she elected to live a life of solitude? You know, I don't know. I would imagine that living in this, you know, bubble that she's created and really having nothing to do but reminisce and live in the past leaves a lot of room for regret and for, you know, stewing over the way that she's been treated, you know, and the fact that, like, she has been at odds with Charles and Eric, and that, like, you know, she knows better than they do in so many ways, right? And that, like, she's frustrated. She's frustrated by their arrogance. And, you know, that's something that we've talked about a lot during these reviews, is that they are fucking arrogant and they are prideful, and pride comes before a fall.
Absolutely. The more that we see Moira, especially, I mean, we've not spent this much time with her since, oh God, I don't even know.
House and Powers. I mean, like, she showed up once since then, right? Like twice, maybe?
Yeah. So, but it becomes like, even when she asks them to listen to her, she says, then listen, for God's sake, because I'm done being ignored and hidden away. She doesn't proceed to say anything terribly relevant. Just that they need to not let destiny be a thing. But what is the answer for Nimrod? Because, okay, yeah, so we eliminate destiny from the equation. How are you stopping Nimrod? He already exists, and his existence is the end. It's the end every time. So what is the answer?
Well, she alludes to it. Like, she says, the clock we're running against is most likely measured in years. It'll become more and more difficult, but there is time, and with time, we can also grow stronger, spread out, and execute a long-term survival plan. That only works if we're actually getting stronger and not being pulled apart, which brings us back to destiny. And, right, we've already talked about Moira's skin in the game for why she would want to get rid of destiny, but as I remember it, in House and Powers, the agreement that they came to was that Moira needs to be hidden away and Destiny can never be resurrected, because if everybody on Krakoa knows what Destiny knows and what Charles and Eric know about Moira, that Krakoa can't stand, because the people won't, you know, they won't believe in it, because they'll, you know, decide that, you know, that's inevitable, or like, you know, whatever, right? That, like, people will splinter. So, I mean, like, I guess her argument is that, like, yes, we need to deal with Nimrod, but we have years to deal with Nimrod, and we need to start planning on how to deal with that. But the imminent threat is Destiny. Destiny needs to be removed, or we threaten to topple our you know, house of cards. Whether or not you take that at face value, I guess, is, you know, is here nor there. But that was how I kind of took it, is that, like, she's justifying that for them to really be together and focus on Nimrod and do what they need to do and spread out across the galaxy so that there's mutants all over the place, or you know, whatever. That's kind of what I got from that. That they need to deal with the more imminent threat, which is that, you know, Mystique is nipping at the heels to get Destiny back now.
Got it. But she doesn't know anything about the future. Moira has no clue about the future. And that is what I'm getting at. She only knows about the past.
Sure.
She doesn't know what's going to happen. So what is her value now? What she knows from before. But this has never happened before.
Nimrod's happened, though. Like, she knows about the timeline of Nimrod.
Nimrod has happened. No, she doesn't. She knows about the timelines of Nimrod in her past, not in this time.
That's true.
So if Nimrod's inevitable, The only thing that matters is how you can stop him. And she has no knowledge of that. Other than, well, actually, she doesn't have any knowledge of that.
Not of how to stop it. No.
No, she has no knowledge about that.
She has
so why should she be listened to? I don't understand.
Well, she does have relevant data in terms of like the rough timeline of how long it takes for Nimrod to become unstoppable. Like
that changes.
Sure. Right. And they've already done things differently that have accelerated the timeline. So like, you know, I wouldn't say that it's like gospel, but like it's definitely like it's information that I would want to have if I was.
But here's what you're missing.
Sure.
In historically, like in this timeline, right?
Right.
Nimrod comes to be in the future. Nimrod is a future mutant, a future sentinel that comes to the past. Okay, that's Nimrod.
Right.
That's the story we know. They have accelerated the timeline so much that Nimrod is now online.
Right.
Something that's supposed to happen in the distant future has happened now. So that's even worse than normal.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, all bets are off on that regard.
Yeah. But I want to keep speaking here because there's something interesting about this sequence. And I could be off, but in the panel where Moira says to them what she thinks they need to do about Destiny and Nimrod, you know, brings it back to Destiny. The way that panel is laid out, it looks to me like someone is observing them.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it does look like that. That could just be like a, you know, artistic choice.
Sure. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. It does look like someone's like peering in.
Yeah.
You know?
Going forward, as we see that they are listening to Moira and enacting her strategies, they gather what they believe is Destiny's DNA. And Sinister has a look on his face. I mean, how could you ever trust him? Like, if you're on YouTube, look at that face. Look at his face. How could you ever trust that?
Yeah. I don't know.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and it begs the question of, like, what happened there?
Yeah.
Like, did Mystique take it before then? And if she did, how did she, you know, manipulate the Five? Like, obviously the Five have been kind of clashing with Professor X already. I don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions there, but, like, none of them are good for the state of Krakoa being a united nation, you know?
We don't have to think that hard about it. Mystique and Mr. Sinister have history.
Sure.
All the characters that are presented as threats right now are people who have worked together before and are historically enemies of the X-Men. So it's no surprise that they're working together.
Yeah.
Destiny and Mystique are members of the Brotherhood. And Emma is a villain. She's a member of the Brotherhood in the past.
She's been an X-Man too, though.
Well, yeah, but she's clearly out for herself. Look at the first page.
I mean, yeah, I don't know, Sean. Might just be your Jean Grey bias talking, but I think you might be onto something.
They threw in a random scene for Doug where he speaks to Krakoa about what's going on the island. And I really wonder why did they throw that in there?
I had a lot of questions about that because there's also the bit at the beginning where he's at his house and I think Bay is how you say her name.
Yeah.
She just like does a weird fucking stare at him as he leaves. That felt really sinister. Don't know what that's about.
I thought that, you know, because she's kind of a hard ass.
Was it just because she's
that
creepy?
was just like, well, I guess if you take it as creepy, but I interpreted it as like, you know, I actually do miss this guy. Like, I didn't want him to know that I was awake while he was kissing me. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You know what? Yeah, I could see that. That makes sense to me. Okay, cool.
We do get another answer about a question that a lot of people had, myself included, which was what was going on with Bishop. Some of the preview material showcased Bishop a lot, and we see now why he's being crowned. Cyclops has stepped down as the, basically the chief commander, the captain commander, captain commando of the of Krakoa, and Bishop is taking on that role. I think that's cool. I don't think that this piece is really relevant to Inferno itself, but I think it's future movements, shuffling the deck, if you will. Bishop is a character that needs, I think, a buff, and this is that. That's not the only thing that happens here. We're getting more mutants, more heroic mutants onto the council. Psylocke has stepped up as well, so I like that.
Yeah.
This is interesting stuff. But it's also stuff that it doesn't seem like everyone's happy with. Emma's clearly not. And if you read Marauders, you know that Emma, her whole deal has been trying to get her allies on the council.
Right. And consolidate power.
Yeah.
Which does make the wrinkle of Bishop interesting, right? Because obviously Kate has been kind of in leagues with Emma, and, Bishop is obviously, real tight with Kate and everything. So it's going to be interesting to see if there is kind of a scramble for power. Like, how does that end up playing out? Because, I don't know, right? Obviously, Kate has kind of interests on both sides of that fence.
Well, Emma clearly isn't happy with Bishop, so that definitely could play out. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing for those of you who aren't necessarily following Hellions is Psylocke's relationship with Sinister. I'm a few issues behind, so they may have resolved this already, but up until where I was actively reading it, she is an agent of Sinister. She owes him, and she's been working towards his ends. So her now being on the council, I wonder how that benefits him.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So lots of interesting stuff to note there. Otherwise, there's the big reveal at the end. It's that Mystique speaks up, and Xavier and Magneto both believe that she's going to bring to the table wanting Destiny resurrected. And so they cut her off and say, listen, there's a time and place. We don't need to talk about that right now. And she says, wait, no. I want to talk about a nominee, and it's Destiny herself. And the glee on the face of Mr. Sinister as that happens tells you everything you need to know about the earlier scene where Professor Xavier is grabbing the DNA of Destiny from him. Moira was clear. She said, get it all. Destroy it all. Mr. Sinister didn't give it all. He didn't give it all, clearly. He knew more than he was saying in that scene right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you get to that last page, and Destiny's there, and the way she looks at them, and you see Magneto and Professor Xavier reflecting in her helmet, and they ain't happy.
They're sweating.
They ain't happy. My
thing is, how does this vote end up with Destiny getting voted in? Like, I mean, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like she doesn't have the votes.
Why do you say that?
I mean, maybe it doesn't even matter, but so I'm looking at the Quiet Council, right? Like, we have 2 open seats right now, or is it just 1?
Well, Psylocke filled 1,
right? So just 1 now,
I think.
Yeah,
you say that to say what?
So okay. So, like, Storm, Nightcrawler, I don't really see what reason they would have to necessarily say yes to Destiny joining. Like, Charles and Eric both obviously going to say no. Sinister, you imagine, is going to say yes, right? Like,
Pete, you're focused on the wrong thing. It doesn't matter whether she gets on the council or
No,
not.
you're
She's
right.
alive.
You're right, and it doesn't matter. But I guess I'm just expressing that while we're talking about it. Is like, does she even have the votes for that? But
I don't think so, but she might when they hear what she has to say, and that's what we have to look forward to in issue 2.
you think that's
is
gonna?
that she's gonna talk?
Yeah. Do you think she's gonna spill the beans?
Um,
I don't know if she's gonna right away.
it's interesting because we don't know how Destiny feels about what Moira has done, but we know how Mystique feels and how Destiny will inevitably feel about the fact that they did not want her back. That's the problem. The problem is, and to me, that's where Moira's wrong. You're keeping Destiny dead and Mystique mad. What happens when Mystique says it's enough and they resurrect her? Now they're mad at you for keeping this secret. Why didn't you just resurrect her and talk to her? I did everything you asked me to do.
Yeah.
Everything you asked me to do. Why keep her dead?
It's personal. It is that, and that's the only explanation for it.
And if that's the case, then Moira is more interested in her self-preservation, and not even just her self-preservation, but her anger about Destiny. Yeah. Than everything involving mutant kind. And so when you mentioned ulterior motive, and I said, I don't think she has one, I still don't. What I think she has is a grudge that overcomes and supersedes whatever loyalty she has to the mutants. And that's the Inferno.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Masterful first issue on the writing end.
Question.
Yeah.
Are all 4 issues this long?
Yep.
Oh, yes! Fuck yes! Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. That's amazing news. So it's really like 12 issues.
Yeah. It's just super condensed. And each one will be drawn by a different artist. Speaking of the art, this was an absolutely gorgeous issue.
Oh, yeah.
I can see why they made the decision to release these with each individual artist doing it, because they're drawing so many pages, but then also they're giving it their all. Valerio Schiti's work has never looked better, in my opinion.
I got no notes for my man here. This issue looks fantastic. And I think it's one of those issues where like it really does show the depth of his talent, because like the big like cool moments obviously look good, but it's the little things that like the little moments that like could have been phoned in and still have that same level of detail and care that like, you know, it takes it that extra mile.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about the lack of Larraz and how that might affect the series. I don't think that this first issue, look, Pepe Larraz is obviously the person who, alongside Marta Gracia and whoever else had the ideas, established how Krakoa would look and feel. And we've seen several artists emulate that style to success and failure. But for this series, this Inferno series, it has to look that way. Yeah. It has to look like House and Powers. And Valerio is an amazing artist who has found a way to make his style look that way. And Curiel's colors are doing a great job as well.
Same. Yeah, I was about to say same to Curiel. Nailing it. Like it's specifically the Moira, Charles, and Eric pages. Like those really feel like House and Powers. Like they really feel like they're locking into that tone.
Yeah, absolutely. This issue did everything I needed it to do. It did more than I thought it would do. I did not think that the first issue would see the resurrection of Destiny. That's major.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing we didn't talk about was there was the medical report about Black Tom.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound good either.
Well, I had nothing to say about it. So what do you have to say about it?
Wasn't his thing that he was doing something that had to do with regulating Krakoa. Like I'm fuzzy on the details of what his responsibility was, because they're saying he's still on active duty, and it was something that had to do with regulating the island. And we talked about how there was that segment with like with the conversation at Krakoa with Krakoa and Doug and what's his name?
You're talking about
The robot, his buddy.
Oh my god, how can I not remember that
It's
name? I love that character.
It's like right on the tip of my tongue.
Why am I blanking now?
Well,
Damn it, Pete.
It'll come to us. The fact that that report immediately precedes that scene leads me to feel like maybe there's something not so good going on with like the I don't know, like the physiology of Krakoa or something like that. I don't know. Like
could be
him having these like loss of feelings and like having it says hallucinations of machinery moving under his skin. Like that's very specific.
Well, that could have something to do with the guy we can't remember who's his name right now.
I'm gonna look it up.
His interactions with Krakoa.
Yeah.
That was something that we talked about a while ago.
Yeah, it's like
he's a phalanx and warlock. Thank you. He's a phalanx, and we've seen him, interacting with Krakoa the whole time. So that could be a part of it. And Black Tom is Krakoa in a sense. So Black Tom is experiencing those things.
Yeah. In
the far-flung future, we saw that Black Tom became just Krakoa. Like,
yeah,
when in Powers, when Black Tom's body is there, but that's Krakoa. So I don't think what we're seeing right now is terribly much more than that.
Than preceding that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We don't know how that impacts Krakoa, but we know that will happen, or at least it happened. So it could still happen.
It could just be a reference to that, which is just, I guess, another shout out to the layers of this that are pulling on all these old threads that we haven't thought about in so long.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think this issue was tremendous.
Yeah. 10 out of 10.
Yeah. I am so sad that this is going to end soon. Like, I don't want this to end. This is so good. We will, of course, be reviewing every single issue of Inferno happily. They will likely all be this long.
I was gonna say we're gonna talk about 40 minutes for every single one of them, because I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any way around that. It is what it is with these books, and this is an oversized issue. So we kind of talked about like 2 or 3 issues in one just now.
Yeah, I feel like it was an appropriate amount of time, frankly.
Yeah. Let us know your thoughts about this series, and whether or not you think we're on point with the stuff that we're kind of thinking is going to happen. The next issue will feature Stefano Caselli on art. He is also very capable. Caselli is the regular series artist over at Marauders. So we will be getting his work, and all the covers feature Emma Frost. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you so much for listening. Of course, we would love for you guys to like the video, share it with your friends, drop us a comment, leave us a rating and a review, like wherever it is that you're listening to us. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube, whether you're listening to this on YouTube or not. Head on over there and hit that subscribe button. It's free to do and it helps us out a ton. Listen to our main show, which drops every single Monday. We will probably talk about Inferno in some capacity on that show. So check that out. And listen to our Image Comics reviews, which drop every single Wednesday. And last but not least, head on over to listen to our book club we did on Low. It just dropped. That was a labor of love. Rick Remender, Greg Ticini, Dave McCagg. We love that series. We did a book club on it. Check it out. Thank you so much for listening. For Pete, I'm Sean. We will see you guys next week for another batch of Comics Pals reviews. Until then, take care, guys.